You know, there's something basic that every one of us understands. Every one of us who considers ourselves to be a Christian, all the Christians, all of America, we all understand that we are saved by grace. The grace of God. His doing, not our own. That's a basic understanding that we all have. All Christians understand that it is by grace we are saved. Ephesians 2:8 and 9 says that we are saved by grace and not of works. We understand that. That is obvious to us. But I want you to imagine with me today. I want you to give some thoughts to the idea that what if somewhere in the Bible, somewhere in this old book that we all have laying around, that yes, we haven't all read through like we should have, but yet this same book that we all have our favorite passages from. But I want you to imagine with me, what if somewhere in this book was a commandment? A commandment that said, you have to do this certain thing if you are going to be called a Christian. Is that possible? Well, I'm sure you're saying right now, you're saying, there's no way that's possible. Because you know the Scriptures. Everyone knows the Scriptures, and we all know that we are saved by grace. And by grace alone. So you know that there's no way that a commandment could be required. There's no way that a work could possibly have anything to do with our salvation. But let me give you some thoughts just to consider. What if we were all mistaken? What if every single one of us were mistaken? From the people that could care less what God said, even though they still call themselves Christians, to the people that are very concerned with what God said. All of us who call ourselves Christians, could we all not be mistaken about what works are? About what grace is, about how we obtain grace? We all understand that the only thing required to get into grace might be faith. But what if there was something more? What if somewhere in this book, somewhere in this Bible, there was a commandment that said, you have to do this certain thing in addition to belief if you are going to enter my Son's blood that saves you, the grace that saves you? What if God had said that to us? And what if He was still saying all along that no, it's not by your own works that you are saving yourselves, but still, nevertheless, this is what I require if you are going to be a child of mine. If you are going to be in my Son's blood, in His grace that saves you. Is that not a possibility? Let me give you some scriptures just to consider on this certain idea. Let's look at Matthew chapter 7 and verse 21. This is the words of Christ Himself. But listen to what Christ says here to us. He says, not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but he who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. He goes on to say, many will say to me on that day, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name? And in your name cast out demons, and in your name perform many miracles? And then I will declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you who practice lawlessness. Is it possible that there's more than just faith required? Is it possible that the actions of us here on earth could actually matter? Could actually be part of us obtaining the grace that God has prepared for us, has given to us, provided for us? Let's look at another, and that is Hebrews chapter 5 and verse 9. Hebrews 5:9. Again, we're asking the question, is it possible what we do is requirements to obtain grace? Hebrews 5:9. Here the Hebrew writer is talking about Christ. And he says, and having been made perfect, he became the source of salvation to all those who obey him. All those who obey him? Again, is it possible that this obedience is required? That it's more than just faith? That it's more than just believing? Could it be that we are actually required to live a certain lifestyle? Again, I'm sure you're saying, no. John 3:16 says it's by faith alone. Ephesians 2:8 and 9 and so many others in the book of Romans and Galatians and Ephesians, and they all say that works are not required. At least that's what they seem to say. But is it possible that they're just saying it's not by works alone? Are they just making the point that it is by the grace of Christ, but still that works could be required? Let's consider one last verse, and that is James. The book of James. We're going to look at chapter 2, verse 24. Listen to this verse, what it says. It's a very simple, short verse. It says, you see that a man is justified by works and not by faith alone. Justified by works, not by faith alone. Does that not contradict that what every church around us tells us? What every preacher we've ever heard has told us? Does that not contradict that? Does that not contradict all of America's way of thinking? Justified by works, not by faith alone. I'm not discrediting grace. I'm not discrediting the blood of Christ, what he's done for us. I'm not saying it's not that we're saved by. And I'm not saying it's the grace of Christ plus what we do that saves us. I'm saying it is fully by the grace of Christ. But could it be that there are works we have to do in order to obtain that? Because God said so. Could it be that there is obedience required if we're going to enter this grace? And if we're going to stay within that grace of Christ? I beg you to consider this new way of thinking. This new thought, this thought that so much of the world, so much of Christianity has never even considered. Jesus said the road to destruction is very wide. But how wide? Could it be everyone we know? Could we all be deceived? That's certainly Satan's goal, to deceive us, everyone. I beg you to consider this thought. Consider this teaching. Let's make sure we are truly in God's grace.